Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on Subjugation of the King Dragons, Part 2. We're on Part 2. I have to admit, last week ended up being a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be a short Mushoku Monday, but not that short. So I do apologize last week. It was kind of one of those weeks where, like, I need to get something out, and I was pressed for time. So I'm like, hey, you got enough right here. Let's edit it, get it out, at least so we can actually get something that week. So hopefully this week will be a lot more longer and juicier. I do know that Chapter 2 is incredibly short, whereas Chapter 3 is a bit long, so I might cut off mid-chapter or something like that. Again, as usual, we'll see how what comes up during the recording and everything, and hopefully something is enjoyable for everybody. But I have been enjoying Subjugation of the King Dragons so far. I think, obviously, Alex. Let's be honest, I really do like Alex's character, so to get more Alex is always a plus here, but I'm enjoying a lot more than I thought I would around, I think, everybody surrounding Alex as well. Like, now we have Shaina, and goddamn, I've already forgot the name of the other person. Chiki. Remember the name. She said, remember the name. I did remember that Wee Ta was Ta. I don't know if she's related to Wee Ta. It does imply that she is short and whatnot. It doesn't imply that she's specifically, like, of that race, but it did imply that she is smaller, so it could be, if the Wee Ta part is part of, like, a family, if Ta is part of a family, or if it's just his full name was Wee Ta, because, I don't know, but that all aside. I don't really have too much to talk about from last week. I do want to get right into the next chapters. Hopefully, again, we have more to kind of chew into with these chapters, so I'm not just reading, but either way, we're going to enjoy the story together, right? But yes, before I get into that, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel and all I do here. Thank you guys so much, chat. Hey guys, hope you guys have a great rest of your week after Mushoku Monday. Greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words, all that stuff. Thank you. And yes, more importantly, I greatly appreciate everybody that support channel monetary through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. Thank you. With that said, let's dive into the next part. Chapter 2, More Collapsed Ladies. God damn it. Really? Really? It's probably going to be the mage. The mage was looking at him, so she's probably going to collapse, and he's going to have to pick her up, too. Like, Alex is over here just... Did they ever imply that he was a ladies' man? That he had, like, a bunch of ladies around him all the time, and suddenly this entire thing is, like, the harem of Alex. Shaina Marianne was a wandering knight. She was 25 years old. She became a knight at the age of 13. Her homeland had a history of 50 years, but it fell the year after she became a knight. Her entire clan was massacred, and yet Shaina alone survived. Again, I'm assuming that's probably why people look at, if she was the one they were looking at, they look at her with disgust. She's a failed knight, basically. She had a natural talent, the talent to survive. And that, yes, would probably mean why she wanted him to leave. If I'm falling, leave me behind. That's what she said. She was especially sensitive to death. She could sense the scent of death and avoid it easily as she breathed. That day, the day her country fell, the royal castle was in flames. The fire was closing in. Enemy soldiers were flooding in. In that desperate situation, she, a fledgling knight, was in a state of pure chaos. She remembered running with her sword. Whether she'd been heading towards the enemy or away from them, she couldn't say. In any case, she was running with sword in hand, dragging her heavy armor along with her. When she reached a three-way intersection near the audience chamber, she suddenly stopped, as if something had tugged at her instincts. At that exact moment, a flame beam fell from the ceiling. The beam landed right in front of her. If she hadn't stopped, she would have died instantly. I mean, it's not implying that it's an eye of foresight. It's saying that's an instinct that's pulling her, like, stop right now. Not that she envisioned something and then she realized she needed to move back. It seems like an instinct, a pure instinct. With the burning beam before her, she froze in shock for a split second, then, without hesitation, leapt over it. Beyond the beam was a sea of fire, but diving in required no courage. At the same time, enemy soldiers appeared behind her. Her figure was obscured by the flames, and they ran past her without seeing her. It wasn't coincidence. Somehow, Shaina knew, if I do this, I'll survive. Again, it's an instinct. It's something that's telling her, if I do this, I'll survive. And it's not saying that it's somebody telling her. That's another key thing there. Do this, and you will survive. It seemed like something outside of what we've kind of seen before. That ability had continued to serve her for over a decade. Becoming a wandering knight by circumstance, she demonstrated that same gift again and again while being temporarily hired across many nations. Thanks to it, at the young age of 25, she became one of the more well-known wandering knights. Or perhaps, more accurately, infamously known, yep. It was humiliating. There were two types of well-known wandering knights who remained without a permanent home. One type stayed uncommitted until they received an offer from a kingdom who thought their abilities matched their needs, waiting patiently until they were invited to join as official knights. That was the majority. Yeah, I can see that. Again, them seeing some sort of talent in that person and the fact that they could put out an oath. Yeah, say if she's with this nation, the nation falls. It's beyond their control. The nation got overwhelmed. Their king was an idiot or something like that. The knight is still good, and they had an oath to them. It's just the kingdom fell. And so I can see other nations going, okay, they're talented. Bring them in. Let them serve until they can prove that they'll be, not be somebody that's just trying to assassinate them or something like that or sabotage them. And eventually let them do another oath. This was the majority. People are greedy. It wasn't surprising that people wanted to join the most favorable nation once they gained a reputation. Actually, that. The other type, those like China, were ones that never got invited because of personal or behavioral issues. Ironically, because of their exceptionally high ability and growing notoriety, preconceptions and rumors kept them from ever receiving formal offers. Humiliating indeed. That's interesting. High ability and growing notoriety. I'm guessing the bad notoriety, the fact that she keeps surviving and people die. That's my assumption. Humiliating indeed. No, it wasn't that she never received any offers. If a kingdom was short on hands and they needed help due to ceremonies to be held or emergencies, even China would be enlisted if she applied. That sort of work was open to anyone with the title of knight. A formal appointment, however, usually came after temporary tasks, when a kingdom would invite the wandering knight to stay and join the ranks permanently. It was a method to secure unknown but capable talent, and a popular system in recent years. All nations sought skilled people, but one couldn't gauge ability without putting them to work first. So they hired wandering knights temporarily, and if impressed, offer them a place in the knight's order. Yeah, again, I can see that. Just to kind of vet them and whatnot. A simple and effective system. The royal knights of the King Realm were also formed this way. Now, as for China, here we go. She had never once been formally invited. During missions, she had heard encouraging words like, "We'd love to have you as an official knight." But by the time the mission ended, she was told, forget what I said earlier, more times than she can count. What? Again, are people dying around her, or is she actually pretty bad? Again, I would assume that people are dying and she's surviving. It was humiliating. So, why did she come to the King Dragon Realm? Because of the famous dragon hunt that had made its way into public rumors. A certain blacksmith said he would forge a sword using a king dragon, and the King Dragon Realm agreed to support the plan. Whatever discussions went on behind the scenes, the nation's cooperation meant the royal knights would be involved. That was her chance. She's really dead set on becoming a knight of a nation. That's the more interesting thing, that this is something that she wants. I mean, again, this is what she, I would assume, trained for and has been living for, and she doesn't have a place to be, and she doesn't want to be a wandering knight. She wants to probably have a place to stay. If the royal knights were moving, the King Dragon Realm was a major power, and its knights were selected by merit. They might be willing to look past the rumors and judge China purely on skill. And it just so happened that it was a hard job, and hard jobs were her specialty. But was she planning on doing it by herself, or was she planning on joining a different group and she just didn't want to get involved with them? Like, is this chick like super powerful or what? It was a perfect opportunity for a long-sought formal appointment. As soon as she heard the rumors, China set out for the King Dragon Realm. But the rumors had reached her in a nation far, far away. She took shortcut after shortcut, hurrying as best as she could. Yet not only did she miss the application deadline, but she barely arrived in time for the first day of the dragon hunt. And to top it off, she collapsed pathetically at the very end. Yep. There was going to be some other thing to that whole thing, and that was because she just overpushed herself. The man who had saved her, well, he was still just a boy, really. He looked around 16 or 17 at most. Young, apparently, he had carried both China and the other girl all the way to town. It was unclear whether it was his strength, stamina, or sheer determination that allowed it, but considering the despair that she felt in the wasteland of death, it was impressive that he had the strength to help others at all. China, who had never saved anyone but herself, found herself curious about the boy. Huh. China, who had never saved anyone but herself. That's not by choice, I would assume. I mean, it's not... The backstory so far hasn't really painted like some sort of chivalrous person here. Just the fact that she just manages to survive. As things are burning around her and the enemy is coming in, she just survives. Instincts tells her go this way, and she survives. At the same time, it's humiliating that she has no place to call her own, and that she's wandering around. Nobody wants her. Nothing in there says, like, I want to be a knight to save people. I must save people. Nothing about this says that she was ever looking for someone to save. So this could be two different things here. This could be an aspect that she sees somebody that is able to save people and she's jealous of it, or that it's giving her a desire, or at least showing her how cool it would be to save people, or at least a admiration. She get an admiration, I guess is the best way to put it. He said things that she didn't understand, like wanting to become a hero, but she found him interesting enough that she was willing to bend her principles just a little. Yeah, right here. And this was something that was hinting at before with chapter 1, that she's like, oh gosh, a hero? What? Like, she scoffed at it. She laughed at it. That's silly. A hero? What? 2 days after the formation of Al's party, China and the others left town, timing their departure to coincide with the return of the initial scouting parties as they resupplied. Their attempt at negotiation, or rather, the promise, had been rejected outright, but after further discussion, they settled on a compromise. If things get dangerous, let's run away together. Oh wait, what? And now they were deep in the mountains, walking a trail that didn't exist before. I thought that was negotiations with the initial scouting party to get information from them. That's talking about specifically with Al, that he probably said, no, I'm not going to leave you behind, but let's run away together. If it gets dangerous, let's run away together. That's odd. It's odd that she accepted that, because it seemed like she was dead set on him running away if something happens. Walking a trail that didn't exist before, one carved by those who came before them, judging from the rival groups they passed, it seemed the strongest contenders had suffered no major losses. However, those that hoped to piggyback off the stronger groups without preparation had suffered badly in a battle against the King Dragons. Some parties were even carrying near-dead members on stretchers. If that was the case, then casualties likely weren't few. You were right, Shina, Al said, clearly impressed. But for Shina, it was something she already knew. Anyone who rushed out in the first day was bound to suffer in some way. A group with the same goals, but out of sync timing was dangerous. I mean, I would assume that a lot of these people that accept this job probably came there prepared for what they're going to be doing. So there's preparations already done? That said, she had no concrete proof. It was just vague feeling, dangerous, pointless, better not go. That explains why she was so dead set on, like, don't do this or that. This, again, is something that is her instincts telling her what to do. So it's interesting that she actually shared that with Alex. Again, she's sitting there and she's like, okay, this guy saved my butt. I'm really hungry. And then he's talking about going out and being a hero. And she's feeling an instincts of like, everybody's rushing out the door. I don't want to do that. And she shared that with Alex. There was no need to doubt her intuition. Even if her logic was unclear, her gut had never once steered her wrong. If it had, she'd be dead by now. Still, the top contenders really are something else. Al, thinking back on the returning parties, started praising the standout groups again. Indeed, even on the first day, they had delivered impressive results. The Blue Leopard Division, in particular, had returned with 3 King Dragon crowns. Despite having about a dozen members, this wasn't meant to be a competition, but it was enough to astonish everyone watching. Shina remembered the sparkle in Al's eye when he saw it. It's funny because I'm already kind of like wondering what makes a King Dragon and a King of the King Dragons, like, have they seen it before? Is it a certain size? They all know it's a certain size? What distinguishes it? Like, how do they know when they see it? It's got to be size. It's got to be strictly size. But then, how big? Those guys with the Blue Leopard Division are in a league of their own. They must have brought their best warriors. When Shina said that, Al gave her a puzzled look. Their best? They didn't seem that strong to me. My, don't act tough. Shina giggled at his tone, like a kid getting defensive when someone else is praised. Naturally, Al pouted and denied it. I'm not acting tough. It's just, it didn't look like they had enough offensive power to defeat the King of the King Dragons. Shina judged it to be sour grapes. He probably wanted to imply that he could do the same thing if he tried. If he really could, she'd like him to prove it, preferably somewhere out of her sight. I don't want to see you die. I have to get involved. Sure. But just so you know, I have no intention to fight several King Dragons with just the 3 of us. If things get dangerous, we're running. Got it? Promise, you'll keep your word. Yes, of course, I understand. I'm more than enough to handle fighting on my own. It won't be dangerous. Just leave it to me. Honestly, Shina sighed. I mean, this guy's like a intermediate, what was it, advanced? Or I think it was advanced swordsman right here. He can't do much. An overblown sense of pride was never a pleasant thing to witness. And if left unchecked, this boy would no doubt charge straight into a pack of King Dragons. There didn't seem to be any immediate danger around them, but just in case, Shina prepared herself mentally. She was ready to knock him out from behind and make full retreat if necessary. Knock this fool out and drag him away. They were currently around the 2nd level of the King Dragon Mountains. This area still was outside the King Dragon's territory, covered in greenery. It was strange how lush it was, considering the wasteland that lay just a little to the east, though not truly mysterious, apparently, because of the mountain shape. all the rain only flowed to the side. One claimed the king of the king dragons, Kajikut, constantly absorbed mana from the wasteland to sustain his overwhelming power. Again, as they were kind of explaining at the very beginning, my assumption there is that, again, an influx of mana, just how it's laid out, how the mana itself is flowing. I think they basically kind of hinted a little bit about the idea of like ley lines, some sort of like ley line kind of concept here. And I can totally see that. It was probably superstition, but considering it was an ancient dragon beyond human understanding, it might not be so far-fetched. There's no way. As that thought crossed her mind, Shaina glanced sideways at Al. Could it be that he wanted to become a hero because he believed that theory? Maybe he thought turning the wasteland into a lush plain would help some poor couple's life or something. How ridiculous. Shaina shook the idea from her head. First of all, that wasn't what it meant to be a hero. Stop. About 10 meters ahead, Shiki raised her palm towards them and suddenly gave a command to halt. Shaina instantly lowered her stance. It was common sense to be cautious when the scout gave a stop signal. Her instincts weren't warning her yet, but Al, on the other hand, strolled right up to Shiki as if he had heard nothing and placed a hand on her small head. Hey, if I say stop, then stop. What do you think Chiki's scouting ahead for? And don't put your hand on my head. Are you making fun of me just because I'm short? I'm not making fun of you. You're small and cute, Chiki. Hey, Knight, make this guy stop treating me like a kid. Shaina shrugged as she caught up. It seemed there wasn't any immediate danger. Come on, just let him spoil you a little. What'd you say? Shiki growled irritably, but Shaina casually looked in the direction they were heading. Wait, there was danger. 5 carrion eaters were growling, having picked up on nearby commotion. Carrion eaters were beasts that resembled 4-legged dogs, but their faces were nothing like dogs. Their lower jaw split into 3, their upper jaw into 2, allowing them to peck at rotting flesh and maggots in a grotesque manner. Remembering the sight made Shaina's skin crawl with revulsion. They were called carrion eaters because of their preference for rotting meat. Their ancestors were monsters created by a certain magician during the Great War ages ago to counter undead monsters made by the demons. That's actually very interesting. Again, we've already talked about the concept that mana itself corrupts the bodies and makes them undead. That's why the idea that if you have somebody that falls in battle, you get rid of their bodies so they don't turn into an undead to attack somebody else. Just like, Paul had to get rid of the body, had to grind down. And specifically with that one, it wasn't just burn down his body. It was also to crush the bones so that he didn't become like a skeleton warrior or whatever. But this is interesting that it's a little bit different lore here in the idea that, and this could actually connect. Let's not get crazy here. This could actually connect. This same thing that the demons created that would essentially make undead from bodies could be the same thing that is now in effect in the world itself, that the mana is still picking up on. That those spells are still like, I guess the best way to put it is like their symbols are just laid in different places during the war, and they're still activating in areas to create undead. ? Just a random like connection theory there. It wouldn't be a stretch there. But interesting to kind of give it not just being like the presence of mana creates undead. It's a spell that was actually created. And cool, the idea of, creating something to counter that. Something to go around and eat all the bodies so that they can't do that. Now they'd evolved and gone wild. But their pack-based instincts still resembled those of canine creatures. They hunted in packs, but not by chasing down living prey. Instead, if someone interrupted their feeding, they'd attack in groups of 3 or more. While feeding, carrion eaters became violently aggressive, and apparently they'd been in the middle of a meal. Seeing the 5 of them baring their teeth and glaring, Chiki puffed up her cheeks. Chiki told you to stop. Just fall back. Shaina shouted, and she drew her sword and stepped in front of the other 2. At that moment, all 5 carrion eaters leapt forward. One came from in the front, with 2 falling behind it. The remaining 2 split to the sides, circling to cut off any escape route. They were fast, and they had experience coordinating movements. Despite being just 5 in number, they were clearly strong individuals. Be careful, she warned the 2 behind as the front one jumped. No time to hesitate. Shaina leapt to meet it. Northgard style, reverse form, first step, sliding avalanche. What? Northgard style, reverse form, first step, sliding out. First step makes me believe there's multiple steps to it. Sliding avalanche. She leapt to meet them. Sliding avalanche? Like a downward attack? She rose above the airborne carrion eater. Getting above a jumping beast might seem pointless. A 4-legged creature would expose its soft underbelly when leaping, so cutting beneath it was standard. But Shaina went above. Why? Because beneath the shadow of the leaping one The remaining two were charging low from beneath, hidden from view. A vertical timed assault from above and below. Moreover, the two from below would strike the first one to jump. Humans struggled to track enemies above their heads, so the first one drew attention, and even seasoned fighters would react too slowly to the lower attackers. It was a perfect combo. Even humans, experts at group hunting, couldn't pull off this precisely, but China, with her exceptional danger sense, saw through it. She knew they were coming from below. Derya? Derya? What does Derya mean? Derya? What is that? I don't know if that's like a rar, or is it a name of something? Derya! With a dancer's grace, she slashed across the leaping beast's neck in midair. Just a small cut to the artery, but more than enough to kill. Even monsters shared the vulnerability with dogs. Landing, the carrion eater spewed blood like a geyser, stumbled, and collapsed. The other two lost sight of China. The one who jumped above had blocked their vision, less than a second until they spotted her. But that was enough of a gap. North God style. Forward form. Second step. Heavenly flower circle. Again, there's the second step right there. She finished the remaining two with a single motion. Her blade slashed upward to the first one's throat, continuing in an arc, and smashed into the skull of the second with centrifugal force. You two okay? She quickly turned to check on her companions. Looks like you were. The last two were already down. One corpse lay in front of Shiki, its limbs severed. When China glanced over, it was still barely alive. But Shiki calmly finished it off with an oddly shaped knife. In front of Al, a headless body stood still. Blood trickled down from its neck, but the head was nowhere to be seen. A headless dog, a spotless silver knight. A surreal, almost fantastical sight. Some eccentric noble with bizarre taste might want a painting of it. As China stared, a still vigilant Shiki relaxed her posture. What, acting like a guardian already, knight? Shiki said that with a sneer as she wiped blood from her blade. Then, once again, Al's hand landed on her head. Now, Shiki. It's only natural to check on your comrades after dealing with the enemy in front of you. He ruffled her head. So what? You're saying we're the only bad ones for not checking on her? And stop putting your hand on Chiki's head like it's nothing. Am I not allowed to pet you? I'm not allowed to pet you? Wait, don't I get the right to pet you? Isn't that part of the whole agreement? I get to pet you? It's something you can't. It's not like it costs me anything. If you want to pet me, that's fine. Just do it in moderation. But you're not petting me because you want to. You're doing it because my head is a convenient height. What is this conversation? Anyways, I'm just glad that neither of you are hurt. With a refreshing smile on his face, Al beamed. Shiki, red in the face, yelled, I knew it. What do you people think heads are for, huh? China watched them with an amused smile, but then their eyes caught sight of a sword on Al's back. She hadn't paid it much attention before, but it was a great sword. The blade had to be over a meter long. Drawing, readying, striking, sheathing, each motion with a sword took longer. As the weapon got bigger, with a sword of that size, it would have been more noticeable. Shanna's own sword was relatively small, single-edged blade, about 50 centimeters long. It had a slight curve to it, as her fighting style prioritized speed in drawing and slashing. Because of that, even when facing 3 carrion eaters, she hadn't fallen behind in speed. If she had been using a sword the same size as Al, she probably would have had a harder time with those 3. When did he draw it? I wonder. A sword on his back is heavier than one on his waist. A quote from a certain sword master. A sword on his back is harder to draw than one on the waist. There was a reason why people traditionally carried sword on their hips. But now that she thought about it, had he really been carrying that sword on his back from the beginning? Didn't he have it on his waist earlier when they left the inn? I don't recall that whole thing. Al, why are you carrying the sword on your back? Wasn't it at your waist just a bit ago? Shiki asked it before China could. It must have been instinctive. Right. Al had definitely had a sword on his waist earlier. She remembered thinking how cumbersome it looked and wondering if he was just showing off. This? It's a secret. Al said that with a teasing smile and gave the sheath on his back a spin. In an instant, the sword shifted to his waist. Wait, what? So it's not changing size. It's not changing size because the assumption is on his back because it's so freaking big. And it's more comfortable being there and he can easily draw it like that. And having this big old thing on his waist, again, it's going to be more cumbersome and hard to draw. And it's probably going to be freaking clanking on the ground or something like that. But he gives the hilt a shift, and then it just goes down to his waist. Like, it's adjusting. I don't know. Well, Shiki let out a surprised voice, a movable sheath. a technique to shift its position. China had a faint feeling that she'd seen that motion, that technique, somewhere before. It tugged at her memories, but it hadn't been from a swordsman that she'd fought before. She remembered something like that. Where had she seen it? At the very least, it definitely wasn't the kind of flashy move a common amateur would perform. Well, I mean, we're already seeing right here sort of her picking up on how powerful these two are. I mean, the immediate response that she has when these enemies are coming up is that she has to step forward and handle it. And then she did a really cool technique, jumped up there, spook, sliced the other two, but then these other ones get to the ones behind her that she's protecting. Shiki's over here like, kills it, whatever, I'm good. Kills one. And then over here you have, again, Al, and he literally just takes this thing out. The body's still standing, the head's gone, and it just plops down. Oh man, that was great. Pats her on the head. He drew this massive sword with a quick blow, put it back on his back. And at the same time that she attacked right there with her fast abilities and her fast weapon, he goes... It's obviously showing he's not just anybody. He's not just anybody. By the way, Shaina, is your style any chance the Northgard style? I mean, she literally said Northgard style, dude. Al's question broke her train of thought. Yes, it is. She was about to ask how he knew. Because you said it. But then she remembered she shouted out her school and technique during the fight. Ever since her master told her to call out her techniques, it had become a habit. It wasn't that unusual. Spreading the name of one's school was a discipline's job after all. I actually don't think I ever recall them talking about that. Yeah, technically with Rudius, again, it was odd that this guy, even though he has silent casting, he's still saying the name of his spells, and that was because during his time with Edis and Rajerd, he wanted to call out so they knew. The oddity there was that, unfortunately, he kept it a habit so that later on when he's fighting alone, he's still calling the crap out, and it's like, you probably shouldn't say what you're doing when you have somebody to warn, because you're just telling everybody what you're going to do. You should use that as your advantage to silently kill people or attack them. But I don't think it ever mentioned like why swordsmanship people would do it. Again, unless you have somebody with you that you're trying to warn that you're going to attack. Why would you say? And now there was a lot of cases where they didn't. There was a lot of cases where an attack happened and they didn't actually say what they were going to do. It was less likely, honestly, it felt like. That technically sort of makes sense. The idea of that, I don't know. That I don't know. Would they be like, I want to help out the discipline by telling everybody? I'm gonna hit the X the doubt button on that one. That X the doubt button, I pressed it. I guess some people would care. It wasn't unusual. Spreading the name of one school was the disciples' job after all. Northgard style is pretty rare, isn't it? Where'd you learn it? The first dojo I joined happened to teach it. But now that you mention it, I don't think I ever met anyone else from the same school. My father practiced Northgard style too. Shanna didn't know how to respond, and while she hesitated, Shiki called out to them. Hey, Al, you, Knight. Al, you, Knight. They turned to look. Shiki had walked towards the area where the carrion eaters had been gathering. Probably bodies. I know, they wouldn't be rotten that fast. Take a look at their food. It was like a clearing in the forest, though it probably hadn't been originally. Judging from the broken trees and scorched ground, it looked like a narrow animal trail had been violently widened. Now it had turned into this burnt-out clearing because a king dragon had gone on a rampage. Why did the king dragon go on a rampage? The answer lied on the ground. Human corpses scattered everywhere. The state of the clearing showed traces of battle. Though the bodies had been partially eaten by the carrion eaters, most remained intact. The stench of rot wasn't overpowering. These corpses look like they belong to the mage group. Shina said it confidently. Wait, isn't this like the next day? How's it rotting that fast? The robes, whether charred or naturally dark, it was hard to tell. The strange scorch marks nearby, the collapsed terrain, the wet leaves and branches, despite the lack of rain, all signs of magic. They fought several king dragons here and lost. How many do you think they fought? Judging from the scales of the battle, maybe 3 to 5? But as she said that, Shina felt something was off. 3 to 5 king dragons seemed accurate. Any more and the clearing would have been even larger. Any fewer and the scale would be smaller. But something didn't add up. That mage group, the Order of the World Tree, wouldn't lose so easily to just 3 to 5 king dragons. They were combat specialized mages. So we're assuming somebody sabotaged them? Question mark? Combat mages were strong, plain, and simple, compared to average magicians who had ventured for survival. The difference was like night and day. Which is so funny because, like, in the mainline series, it almost feels like mages are like very like overall like the advancement of magic is like so small. It's obviously implied that it can be really, really incredibly powerful, but like it's just not like you don't see them. You don't really see many magicians, and when you do see magicians, they're not very powerful, and they're usually with other groups for people to have frontliners, to people to protect them and whatnot. This is implying this is a group of mages. I don't remember anywhere in the mainline series a group of mages. Again, it was always like a mage with some other group of people that were all swordsmen and priests or whatever. Very interesting. Anyone who could use magic could call themselves a mage, but to be a combat mage, one had to pass an examination of the Mages Guild. Again, interesting. They were trained in all forms of battle magic. Offensive spells like fire, lightning, ice, shock. Defensive spells like barriers, wards, domains. And even supportive spells like healing, flight, acceleration. I guess there's going to be like another potential inconsistency there. The Mages Guild teaching barriers and wards. Again, technically the Holy Knights of Millis coming over there to hunt them down or whatever. Again, more inconsistencies. Top-tier combat mages, even trained in martial arts. The old belief that mages were weak in close combat didn't apply to them. They had techniques that used staves as catalysts and concentration to do incantations while brawling, and the endurance to keep casting mid-battle. That's crazy, yeah. Because the assumption there, again, is that you need a frontliner, somebody to hold the line while the mages in the back are casting magic. And again, long incantations that they need to have full concentration for. True, swordsmen matured faster. And since magic was still a skill, there was always ways to defend against it. All else equal, a swordsman might win. But when it came to fighting monsters, combat mages were said to have a clear advantage over your average swordsman. Yeah, I mean, again, it really does imply that, like, at least Saint tier, like the Sword God style or something like that, it's, like, incredibly powerful from that point on. Like, they're just, again, lightning fast slices that can slice the head off of something. Such was the effectiveness of magic. Take Fire Lance, for example, a spell that forms a flaming spear, gives it mass, and pierces enemies using intense heat. Its power scaled with temperature. But against humans, raising the heat did little. There was a certain threshold where a person would die anyways, and if the target wore anti-fire gear, the spell could be nullified. Such gear was rare and expensive, but the point was, it was possible to neutralize the spell. On the other hand, against monsters, especially massive ones like king dragons, the spell's increased power had a major impact. Their surface area and body mass made it hard for swordsmen to land lethal blows, but with magic, it was possible. Again, it's so funny reading this because it feels so opposite to the entire mainline series. Again, either an idea of, like, again, a shift of sort of what people know. Could be advancement of swordsmanship since this point onwards. It seems like there was a massive shift in what people believed from the time of Subjugation to the time of, again, the mainline series. Or just a less emphasis on it. It could be a less emphasis on it, really. Again, Rudius being around swordsmen and seeing sort of the power they have while he's a magician, it could be as well. But again, never gave a sense of this kind of confidence in the mainline series, except for, like, individuals like Roxy. See right there, that's an example. Roxy in the mainline series seemed like an anomaly. She's soloing dungeons. It's crazy. Like, the tales that were told of Roxy were like crazy stories to people that Rudius was telling everybody to tell. But again, that goes to it. Like, what Roxy was doing there was using magic in a clever way that made it work. I guess it's just the fact that typically whenever they did talk about mages specifically, is the danger was the mana pool. These people could run out of mana and they're dead. They're incredible. They can do crazy things. The spell can literally pierce things because they increase the heat on it, whereas a swordsman couldn't break their scales, but then they run out of mana and they're dead. And that could be how these individuals died, if they just kept getting attacked over and over again. Then there was a physical toughness. While swords couldn't easily slice their scales, magic could bypass such defenses. But to get back on track, 4 or 5 king dragons shouldn't have overwhelmed a mage group focused on dragon slaying. Yet here the mages lay, defeated, their corpses strewn across the field. It didn't make any sense. The side with superior force had been annihilated, while there wasn't a single dragon corpse in sight. To find out why, Shina began inspecting the bodies one by one. It's probably those guys that walked by with all those crowns. She found it on one corpse, a middle-aged man with a look of shock frozen on his face. He clutched a high-quality staff and wore fine robes. A sword wound and not just any. One from behind. Taken off guard. A king dragon couldn't make such a wound. So why did this man have it? And that wasn't the only thing strange. The number of corpses. If China recalled, the mage group had 30 members. Less than the half of that number of bodies were present. Maybe the dragons ate the rest. But China suspected something else. The presence of a third party. The bodies had been concealed by someone. Here's the hypothesis. Someone who found the mage group and conveniently attacked them during their battle with the king dragons, wiped them out, erased their own tracks, and made it look like the king dragons had annihilated the mage group. The missing bodies were either burned or buried. They likely assumed the carrion eaters would erase the evidence in 3 days anyways, so their cleaning of the evidence was sloppy, and as a result, one body with a sword wound remained, setting aside the correct answer. The fact remained, one of the mages had been slashed from behind with a sword. In other words, the real question is, who did it? The most suspicious group, logically, would be the Blue Leopard Division that brought back the head of the 3 king dragons. Yeah. The number also matched those that attacked this clearing. The least suspicious would be the martial arts group, which fought barehanded, but that doesn't completely rule them out. They hate swordsmen even more than they do mages. That said, given their doctrine that swordsmen are weaklings who rely on weapons, and their deep disdain for using swords, it seemed unlikely that they would sneak up and strike behind with one. Okay, we're adding lore to these individuals. They not only use their fists, but they hate swordsmen. And they hate the swords. I'm all for, like, you know, people that are learning martial arts and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean they can't touch a different weapon. How would you lower yourself to the level of grabbing a sword? Ew, gross. It's not impossible, but probability is low. Or perhaps it was someone not affiliated with any group. Maybe a thrill killer mixed into the dragon slaying parties, saw the mage group mid-battle, got excited, and killed them in the heat of the moment. I mean, you can catch them off guard and pull something off like that, but damn, take down all of them? Like, yeah, you could surprise attack one of them, but then you're probably going to get toasted after that. If you start accounting for coincidence, there's no end to the possibilities. Huh? Shina realized she couldn't see the other 2 noisy companions. For a moment, she wondered if they left her behind, but there was no need to worry. Just behind a thick tree trunk nearby, the 2 of them stood. They were looking at something at the base of the tree for some reason. Upon closer inspection, there was 3 carrion eaters' corpses lying around them. Did more show up? Shanna wondered, but the 2 of them seemed off somehow. Did something happen? Well, about that, she could look troubled. Al was nodding with a cheerful there. When Shanna walked around the tree to see for herself, she found a hollow tree. Inside was a girl wearing tattered robes. There's the next harem member. Goddamn, just picking him up. Just picking him up. When Shina walked her... Shina's probably going to think here in a second, what is with the man fighting collapsed people? A survivor. Shiki explained succinctly, but that much was obvious at a glance. She didn't appear to have any major injuries, but she seemed severely weakened. Perhaps she'd exhausted both her mana and her stamina. Let's head back for the day. We need to take her back to town to get her taken care of. Al said that naturally. As he hoisted the girl onto his back, it was a smooth, practiced motion. He does this a lot. No hesitation at all. Don't worry. I'm really used to this. It gave a sense that he was used to this. He acted as if helping her was more important than figuring out who she was or investigating the scene any further. Perhaps because she'd been in the same situation once, Shina couldn't help but speak up. Is rescuing people who have been collapsed on the roadside a hobby of yours? Her voice came out sounding exasperated. Oh, gosh. Chapter 3, Death God's Night. What? Again, I keep thinking that I've missed something about Shina at some point in the mainline series. Shina Marianne. The girl woke up the next day. With hazy eyes, she looked around. There was 2 women in the room. One was a girl about her own age, with dark brown skin. She sat cross-legged on the bed next to her, polishing an assortment of knives laid out in front of her. Her focused demeanor was reminiscent of a doctor preparing for surgery. Or perhaps a torturer carefully selecting their tools for the job. Was she about to be killed? The other woman was in the opposite direction, sitting on a chair by the bed, reading a book. From the neck up, she had the air of a refined young lady, but overall, she looked more like a castle maid, slacking off and reading a popular novel. I'm guessing this is the perspective of the mage. The most distinct difference from a typical maid was that, despite being indoors, she had a sword strapped to her waist. Who could she be? With such different people on either side of her, she had no idea where she was, or what was about to happen to her. She turned her head again. Her eyes met those of the girl with the knives. Hey, Knight. Looks like she's awake. There was a soft clatter as the chair shifted slightly. When she looked in the direction of the sound, the woman was standing, holding a water jug. Good morning. Would you like some water? She silently nodded. Her throat was parched. With practiced hands, the woman brought the jug to the girl's lips and poured a small amount, just enough to avoid choking her. She did this 2 or 3 times. That alone was enough to quench the girl's thirst. Thank you very much. Oh my, you can speak already. You're welcome. There was a soft clack sound. She turned her head and saw the door, the only one in the room, had just closed. The knife girl was gone. It must have been the sound of her leaving, though oddly, she hadn't heard any footsteps. She tried to sit up, and pain surged through her entire body. You okay? It wasn't that bad of an injury. The woman looked down at her, sounding more indifferent than concerned. Now that she thought about it, the pain stung throughout her entire body when she moved. But it wasn't anything unbearable, just minor bruises it seemed. The girl sat up, feeling a bit dizzy, but it passed quickly. Where am I? An inn in the town, at the foot of the King Dragon Mountains. The woman responded briskly. Looking over, the woman had already lost interest in her, and was back to sitting in her chair, reading her book. The title was The Legend of the North God. It was a lyrical epic by Bard Lehant, published 10 years after his death. I'm guessing that would be about Kalman? We got the full story of the Water God. I want to say the only one that we got like a true like origin story was the Water God, like the first Water God. I don't think that we ever got anything from the North God style. Or did we? I assume it'd be Kalman though. Kalman the First. The girl had read a simplified version of it as a child. She especially liked the 3rd chapter, where the hero fights a demon king. It was a clash between an overwhelming powerful demon king and the hero who wielded the sword capable of defeating her in a single strike. A battle to see who could land one blow first. The bard Luhant, powerless and worthless, could do nothing but watch. That was the story. Interesting. What's happening? I don't know. Neither of them moves. I can't move either. Only a shudder ran down my spine. That was a line that made a lasting impression on her. Why did Luhant part ways with the hero at the end? The girl suddenly voiced her question. The woman twitched an eyebrow, and then closed the book with a snap rather roughly. Don't spoil the ending. Don't spoil the story for someone who's reading it. Sorry. For the girl, it was a story that she had read a dozen times and knew the ending by heart. But apparently, that wasn't the case for the woman. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Without waiting for a response, the knife girl from earlier walked in. She strolled inside and plopped herself down in front of the line of knives that she had left earlier. Though she looked boyish, her gestures were like a small animal. Cute. Then she turned towards the door and called out with a sharp tone. Hey, Al, what are you doing? Get in here already. Responding to that, a boy peeked his head in nervously through the half-open door. Wait, nervously? Al? Question mark? Does he know her? Shiki, when you knock, you're supposed to wait for a reply. What are you saying? You knocked. This room belongs to the maid knight. And Shiki, why should I wait for a response to enter my own room? Because there's a guest in here. Excuse me. The boy glanced around cautiously, judging that it was safe, and finally stepped in. Seeing him quietly close the door behind him, the reading woman let out a soft chuckle. How well-mannered. The boy shrugged. Despite how I look, I come from a fairly good family. Yes, this feels like a very different side of Al right now. The woman said, now that you mention it, you did say something about that, and stood up, yielding her chair to him. Then she walked over to the knife girl and sat on the bed. The bed creaked, and the knife girl made a displeased noise. It's my territory. It's my bed. Good morning. The boy sat down in the chair and spoke cheerfully to the girl in the bed. I'm Alex Ryback. Feel free to call me Al. Flowing clouds. Did you say something about clouds? The boy tilted his head and looked out the window. Unfortunately, today was a clear day, with a cloudless blue sky. Wrong. Name. Mine. The girl struggled to form words. The headquarters of the Magicians Guild was on the western side of the northern lands, and the language there was quite different. Her pronunciation was clumsy, and the boy found it a little hard to understand. I guess. I don't think they ever really implied a different dialect or something up there. I believe they were all human god tongue. I don't know if they implied they're using fighting god tongue. I mean, if it was different tongues completely, they would mention it. This sounds like it's more like a pronunciation thing. Again, a dialect or something like that. The woman who had been reading chimed in to help. Al, it seems her name is Flowing Clouds. Ah, that makes sense. Magicians tend to... I see. Thank you, China. Al nodded, satisfied. Magicians typically had, in addition to their real names, a special alias. A little bit extra added lore that wasn't really consistent there. This tradition came from old superstitions. When summoning a devil, knowing the devil's true name gave the summoner total control. But if a devil learned the summoner's true name, they could steal their soul. So both sides use alias to stay on equal footing. Okay, that's actually cool. That actually makes sense. That is actually cool. But again, what they imply later on, like when Nahoshi tells Rudius, Yeah, the whole story about the idea of summoning something that you can't control or whatever. Probably best not to summon things that are too powerful. Well, since some of the so-called devils, certain clans of demons, also use false names, perhaps it wasn't just superstition. Nowadays, aliases were usually composed of a magic attribute and an adjective reflecting the mage's personality. For example, someone named Raging Earth was likely short-tempered and skilled at earth magic. That said, such straightforward names are rare, especially for combat-focused mages. Having your name reveal your powers or temperament wasn't exactly ideal. I mean, you're not wrong. China pondered. Flowing clouds. It gave the impression of the person who went with the flow, using cloud-based magic, but surely it wasn't that simple. Cloud-based magic, I would assume, would probably be water. Unless it's water and lightning. Maybe back here we had somebody actually knew lightning magic before Rudius. Which again was just different ways of using water magic. Flowing could imply indecisiveness, but in that case, the name might have been Drifting Cloud instead. Flowing Cloud suggests someone who moved with purpose, almost like a river. Clouds usually brought to mind water or wind magic, but it could also be a play on words. Cloud, as in spider, meaning her magic might involve binding, poison, or illusions. What is spider's a connection there? Pronunciation of clouds and spider in Japanese is kumo for both. Okay, so it's similar pronunciation. Personality, easily swayed, good at cloud-based magic. There was a soft thud, and when flowing clouds turned towards it, she saw Shina had pinned Cheeky down on the bed. Wow, we're getting frisky over here. What's going on? Where is this going? A few of the knives fell to the floor from the impact. Hey, Knight, that's dangerous. Cut it out. If you're in heat, go mess with that guy over there. Cheeky's busy right now. Shiki flailed around, struggling, but Shina wasn't an amateur, and with a clear size advantage, it wasn't going to be easy for Shiki to break free. Where do they get this like closeness? Where did this come from? Little Shiki, you're so small and cute. Squish, squish. Where did this come from? Cut out, or I'll stab you. Damn it! A wrestling match broke out on the bed, where the knives were scattered. It looked dangerous, but Al ignored it. Al's missing out. Al, you be checking this out. Anyways, clouds. Yes. If you don't mind, could you tell us what happened out there? Honestly, I can't believe your mage group was wiped out just by 2 or 3 king dragons. Shina, still tussling on the bed, suddenly froze. She had to strip Cheeky down to her underwear. What is going on over there? What? What is going on over here? I was like talking to clouds and there's just like something happened behind him. Little Cheeky, did you catch that? You mean how stupid you are? I'm reflecting on how I should have realized it sooner. Not that. I mean the part about how a mage group shouldn't have been wiped out by king dragons. Oh, that? Yeah. Some of the corpses showed signs of being knocked out by blunt force. I figured the attackers might have been lurking nearby, but turns out just a false alarm. Blunt force? Why didn't you say something sooner? I figured it was obvious, okay? It was not obvious. And anyways, I'm a knight and you're an assassin. Of course you would notice more details. Yeah, good point. I'll be more careful from now on. Shiki nodded obediently and began putting her clothes back in order. So she's gonna put her clothes back on. Shina watched her and then turned her gaze towards Clouds, who was still silent in response to the question. Her expression was vacant. It was impossible to tell what she was thinking. Her pale, bluish-white hair was a mess, likely from sleeping, and her night clothes were slipping off of her shoulders. She looked like an ordinary girl who had just woken up, kind of sexy. Damn, Shina. First stripping her, and now she's already looking at her. Shina likes the girls. Al sat in front of that girl, wearing his usual quiet smile. Even in Shina's eyes, there was something off about Al. He didn't have the usual boyish energy for his age. He was far too composed. As a knight, Shina had had many chances to speak with noble boys, and she knew that boys at his age, even those who had acted gentlemanly on the surface, would still immediately start ogling women. But Al didn't. Well, that's the problem, is that you're not getting his actual age. She doesn't know exactly how old he is. That's not to say that he was perfectly refined in every way either. He still talked about childish dreams like slaying dragons. He was unbalanced. You really don't remember anything about the battle? If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to force yourself. No, it's not that. Strange men came from behind and attacked us all of a sudden. And then dragons came from in front. Everything was chaos. That what happened, I don't really understand. I see. That makes sense. In any case, just focus on resting for now. Al said that and slowly rose from his chair. I think he heard what he needed to learn. I mean, yes, it'd be nice to know who exactly attacked, but at least now he knows that somebody did attack them. His face still wore that calm, gentle smile. Flowing Clouds seemed a little relieved just seeing it, but Shina felt a strange unease. Thinking back, There was something weird about this boy named Al. For someone with such childish ideals, his behavior didn't match. Even when exploring the mountains, he hadn't rushed ahead on his own like she had expected. He let Shiki take the lead and followed from behind with a composed calm. He wasn't hot-blooded. Even when they saw the corpses in that clear, she expected more outrage, shock, panic, some kind of emotional reaction, but he was surprisingly calm, and yet he saved flowing clouds without hesitation. People whose words and actions don't match are rarely trustworthy. How ridiculous. Shanna shook her head, brushing the thought away. Whatever the case, Al had saved her life. That much was undeniable. I'm guessing this is similar to the first chapter, where there's this moment where she wants to believe that he's, like, not really that person, but he keeps showing signs that he is that person. He claims this, but I want to dismiss it. There's no way that he actually wants this. There's no way that he actually wants to be a hero. He's got to be some child with some dumb ambitions. A hero? Laugh. And then he's like, no, I'm going to do that. Oh, you're serious. Here's another moment where it's like, oh, yeah, he's probably a kid. Yeah, I expect him to rush out there. But no, the entire time he was in position. He never rushed ahead. He never acted like a hero, even though he's claiming he wanted to be a hero. He's not acting like a dumb kid being a hero. And, again, he's doing exactly what he's saying. He saved my life. He saved her life. He didn't panic when he seen the bodies. He immediately grabbed the girl and took her to the inn. He's a hero. People whose words and actions don't match. I expect him to be this way, and his actions aren't that way. Anyways, I'm getting hungry. Let's eat. Al, would you mind coming with me for shopping afterwards? Of course, then Shiki can stay behind and look after her. Yeah, leave it to me. Shanna still felt uneasy, but didn't dwell on it. Yeah, I was about to say, you guys can't really leave this girl behind because she's like the only witness to basically a massacre that happened. I'm surprised they haven't contacted anybody yet, knights or something. In the end, the most likely truth behind the annihilation of the mage group, Order of the World Tree, is that the strongest group was attacked and taken out by the others. That's probably all there was to it. The mage group had been the most powerful of the king dragon hunting teams. Their offensive and defensive capabilities were on a different level. They were prepared to deal with the gravity magic and fire breaths. Their detection magic would also allow them to find dragons more efficiently than other groups. And frankly, most of the other groups in the tavern were the kind who wouldn't bat an eye to sabotage. If Shanna were the leader of one of those groups, she probably would have done the same thing. Not just focus on dragon hunting, but also mess with their competition. And I mean, that's the best way to come to a conclusion, is to understand your enemy. Yeah, these people are going to do this. There's no doubt about it. If I was in their shoes, I'd probably do the same thing. Interfering with rival groups wasn't exactly noble, but it wasn't worse than that of a beast either. Still, the justice-loving boy walking beside her seemed unable to accept it. I really can't forgive that kind of thing. Why can't they just compete with strength, fair and square? Because they can't win. When Shanna gave her opinion about what happened in the clear, Al erupted with a visible frustration and anger. It was easier for Shanna to deal with him when he made such straightforward, righteous remarks. The other groups were maybe a 7 in power, while the mages group was a 10. If things had gone on, they would have definitely been the first to have defeated the king of the king dragons. Rather than gamble on luck, knowing you'll lose in a fair fight, it's more reliable to take them out while they were still nearby. Even so, listen, Al, the situation isn't all bad for us either. Now that the strongest group is gone, we've got a real shot. I can't just accept that so easily. Seeing Al pout, Shanna muttered softly, yeah, me either. To be honest, despite Al's enthusiasm, it would have been best if the mage group had just gone on ahead and taken down the king of the king dragons. Now they had a shot, sure, but if they actually ended up fighting the king of the king dragons, Al would probably die in an instant. Thanks to the Blue Leopard Division and the mage group, they were starting to forget how terrifying the king dragon really was. Shanna would rather avoid that outcome if she could. Wait, what? Despite Al's enthusiasm, it would have been best for the mage group to have gone ahead and taken down the king of the king dragons. Now they had a shot, sure, but if they actually ended up fighting the king of the king dragons, Al would probably die in an instant. Okay, so this is Shanna. Again, this is Shanna's perspective. Shanna's like, that's the weird thing. Now, yeah, technically, all Shanna's here for is to get recognition. And so it doesn't really necessarily mean that she has to kill the king of the king dragons. So she's coming here and knowing that she can't beat this thing, but she wants to impress the knights. She wants to impress the order so that she can possibly get recruited. Now the mages who could have taken out this thing that she knows she can't kill, she thinks that Al can't kill, now they're dead. Crap, we might actually end up running this thing. And she's like, no, this isn't good. It's like, damn it, I don't really want to do this, but yeah, we technically can go fight it now. That's kind of funny. Sorry. As she was talking and looking sideways, Shanna bumped shoulders with someone. Wait a minute. She instinctively apologized and tried to move on, but the other person didn't let it slide. He grabbed her arm and forced her to turn around. When she saw his face, China felt her expression stiffen. I knew it was you. China Mariani. Barkol. Al turned around, sensing something was off. 3 men in white armor stood there. The armor bore the emblem of St. Millis. They were the Holy Knights. The one glaring at China looked the least like a holy knight. In fact, with his rough face, he looked more like a bandit. He looked at her like he was looking at the murderer of his parents. You'd never guess it at first glance, that this bandit-looking man was actually the high-ranking officer of the Holy Knights Order. When I saw you at the tavern, I thought it might be you. You got some nerve showing your face in front of me like it's nothing. I didn't exactly want to show you my face. China thought to herself that she had run into some troublesome opponent. When she saw the Holy Knights Order at the tavern, she'd known that if she ran to this man, their leader, there would be some trouble. She had intended to avoid it, but she slipped up. You're ready to be killed for real this time, right? And you better hope you take me down one clean blow. Otherwise, your efforts will go to waste. What was that? Barkol clicked his teeth and glanced at his subordinates behind him. The two looked confused. Understandable, after all. Their superior had suddenly shown open hostility. The Barkol that China knew was like a wild dog, territorial and proud. He would bite anyone who got in his way, but he wasn't a mad dog. He wouldn't do anything that didn't benefit him, and if necessary, he could even wag his tail at his superior he despised. He was just like a cunning, greedy, wild dog. Yet within the Holy Knights Order, he was trusted, the kind of man who would openly tell his superiors, I'll betray you someday. So if I do, it was your fault for letting your guard down. But when it came to his actual work, he was a capable man. If he were incompetent, his superiors would have found it easy to discard him. But he was far too competent for that, too valuable to throw away. Whether an ally or an enemy, he was the type of person you would consider high risk but high reward. That was China's picture of the man named Holy Knight Barkol. Vice Captain? Yeah, I'm assuming that he probably knows her from the Fallen Kingdom. This guy went off somewhere else, to Millis, obviously, and seemingly got himself in there. Now, why he has a bone to pick with her is a big question mark. I'm assuming this is the first time that he's seen her since he joined the Holy Knights Order, and now he wants to kill her. Again, potentially blaming her for whatever happened with the kingdom. Failed to protect the king or something. Fleed. Left him behind. His subordinates probably understood this too, which is why they were hesitant. They didn't understand why their boss was baring his fangs at a passing woman in strange armor. One of them, unable to hold back, spoke up. Vice Captain, could you at least tell us who this woman is? Is she an enemy of our homeland? Then we too. It's nothing like that. It's personal. Barkol spat the words out with a sour look. Then he finally seemed to notice the boy standing beside China, his brow furrowed in suspicion. Who the hell are you? Pardon me, my name's Alex Ryback. Can you let my friend go? Can you let my friend go? I'm currently traveling in a party with China. Party? Barkol looked Al up and down, from head to toe, then leaned in close like a thug, glaring at him. Al responded with a calm smile. Forgive me, Holy Knight. May I ask your name? Huh? The polite tone caught Barkol off guard. I'm Barkol, Vice Captain of the Millis Exorcist Armored Corps, Central Continent Branch. Vice Captain, that sounds like an important position. It's just middle management. Not that impressive. China knew the truth. The Holy Knights Order had 6 branches across the world. The Central Continent Branch was second only to the main headquarters. In terms of personnel and jurisdiction, it might even surpass the main branch. Holy crap, they're making this guy to be out incredibly important. If the Knight's commander was the highest position, then the branch leaders came next, and just below them were the vice captains. In other words, Barkol was the number 2 of the second largest branch. Wow. Okay. How did he get that position? Is this guy like super powerful? There were fewer than 20 people above him in the entire organization. What? He was important, you think? Normally, someone like him wouldn't be out here managing a dragon slaying operation. That's my question mark. Why the hell is he here? But he was here probably because he planned it himself, to show off his field skills and to claim the glory of Dragon Slayer for himself. His driving force was his ambition to get ahead. China didn't know what had pushed him to be this way, but he was refreshingly straightforward in his aim to reach the top. Barkol had seemed to take a liking to Al. He wore a vulgar grin and stroked his chin, leering at Al's face. He probably could tell how strong Al is just by looking at him, unless he knows who he is. From the outside, he looked like a bandit sizing up his next target, but to him it was a casual gesture. I see now. Probably some noble brat, considering the innocent look. So, the Death God's Knight was snatched up by another poor sucker. The Death God's Knight? Like Randolph's master? Question mark? Shana's expression changed. The Death God's Knight, you say? What, never heard of it? Yeah, I guess not. If you had, no way you'd choose to travel with that woman. If you don't mind, could you tell me more? Oh, Shina, he wants to know. Should I tell him? Should I? Shanna glared at Barkle. Seeing that, Al said, she seems like she's fine with it. Please, go ahead. You sure, Shanna? To talk about this kind of stuff. That seemed to take the wind out of Barkle's sails instead. Shanna turned away. Why not? It's not like anyone believes what you say anyways. Barkle looked slightly deflated. But then he snorted and spoke. This woman here, when push comes to shove, she'll kill her own comrades to survive. That's why they call her the Death God. What? More than Al, it was the two holy knights that looked shocked. It must have been a well-known story amongst the Order, but it's a story deeply tied to Shanna's past. I see. Al nodded. His expression was unreadable to Shanna. He's probably disappointed, she thought. It was always the same. Everyone knew the tale of Death God's Night. As soon as they realized it was Shanna, her expression would change, and they'd back away. The Death God's Knight who killed her allies. Yeah, again, this is turning into more of a everybody around her ends up dead. It's a curse, basically. She's a curse. Wherever she goes, death follows. And as she rounds a corner, death will swing his scythe and take somebody out. She's not killing anybody. It's just that anybody around her ends up dead. Huh? That's strange. She expected Al to act like the others. That thought alone made her eyes start to tear up. So, that's all it takes for you to act like you won some great victory over something so trivial. What a laughable holy night. For a moment, Shanna didn't recognize that voice. It was clearly a scornful voice. Deep, rough, and unfamiliar. It was the first time that she had heard Al speak like that. Barkle, who had been expecting a funeral-like mood, wore a dumb expression of a hen whose egg had just been stolen. That's how overwhelming Al's voice was. What did you just say? When Shanna turned to look, Al was smiling as usual. That cool smile made Barkle's face turn bright red. For all of his cunning, he had a short fuse. If someone so much as laughed at him, he immediately started to plot their downfall. That said, despite his looks, he didn't lash out when angry. Instead, he had a habit of pulling back to cool his head first. Yeah, I mean, he probably wouldn't be the position that he is without going out and conniving and plotting something. Like, it seems like somebody is going to make the situation look like he had pulled something off, gained a victory in some other way, so that he doesn't look like he's just some person that's going to cut somebody down the street. That's an easy way to end up, thrown away. You watch your back at night, punk. With his teeth grinding, Barkle turned on his heel. He never started a fight when he was angry. Shanna, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. Could it be? The thing with the mage group? That was your doing? Barkle stopped and turned back with a fake expression that practically screamed, I have no idea what you're talking about. Who knows? I've got way too many suspects to narrow it down. What? Barkle left with those parting words, saying, Come on, let's go, as he led his dumbfounded subordinates away. Huh. I mean, yeah, it seemed like he would have a lot to gain by taking down the mage group. We have, two groups that are kind of highlighted the most here, which is going to be his group and it's going to be the leopards. Yeah, technically, I can see him wanting to do something like this in order to gain that position. But he's going to have his subordinates on board, too. It's not like he can do it himself. But again, we don't know how incredibly powerful this guy is. And again, him being in the position that he is, he's got to be something special. He's either got to be very conniving, very smart, or very powerful. But she's calling out right here, and he's like, no, I got too many... No. Did they report it? Question mark. I mean, the assumption is they just got back, and they immediately went to go question her when she woke up. The question is, did they report this? If they haven't reported this, and Barkle responded like that, sus. Absolute sus right there. Shanna and Al walked through the streets. In the cheap shopping basket they brought along, there were vegetables native to the region and some river fish. The merchants had likely stocked up in anticipation for the influx of people. The two had managed to finish their shopping without facing a disappointment of sold-out goods. I used to be in the Holy Knight's Order. Okay, there answers that, how they met. Shanna said, breaking the long silence. About 10 years ago, I think, after my home country fell, and I became a wandering knight. It was right after that. I was over the moon. I mean, being a holy knight is a childhood dream of everyone, right? She had been around 14 or 15. At the time, being both young and a woman, no country would formally employ her. Part of her was a lack of skill, but she had been overconfident too. She often grew bitter, seeing people clearly less capable than her being selected. That's when a recruitment notice came from the Holy Knight's Order. They were looking for personnel to investigate a certain cult of heretics. She hadn't expected much. The Holy Knight's Order had a long history, and she assumed that it meant that they valued seniority. A young woman like herself would probably just get used as a convenient grunt, or worse, deemed a burden and left without any real work. Still, Shanna applied. Just applying meant she'd be guaranteed basic living conditions and a salary. Of course, she had some hope for success, but it was just that, hope. So she applied, and as part of the Holy Knights, she received the shining exorcist armor of legends. Or rather, it was a suit of armor painted white. And got a small amount of preparation money. The legendary exorcist armor. It was just painted white. I wonder if it's the armor that she has right now, but she just painted it black over the white, ? Now, a so-called Holy Knight, Shanna was, as expected, given no real assignments, looked down on for being a woman, and fell into the lowest ranks of the low. But even from the bottom, Shanna didn't give up. She kept working. It wasn't because she wanted to prove herself. She thought that if she stopped working and let herself rot, her abilities and spirit would rot too. Yeah, I can see that. And it's sort of interesting kind of seeing this perspective, because I think the only other perspective we have of, anybody in the Knight's Order or anywhere in Millis, knighthood, was just Therese. And technically Therese, I would assume, probably got quite a bit of a leg up because, again, her family name itself. It kind of makes me believe that it's not so much the idea that women can be in any position. It's more of a fact of, who are you? I can see some random woman walking in there is going to be obviously be mistreated because of her gender, being seen as less capable. A self-centered reason, perhaps, but not a bad one. Then, one day, through her own investigation, Shanna uncovered decisive proof of a gathering of heretics. And I bet somebody stole it. Her immediate superiors, fellow grunts, dismissed it with a laugh. If you could find something like this, someone else would have found it long ago, they said. But there was one man, only one, who took it serious and listened to her. Mr. Barkey? A low rank, officially appointed Holy Knight in charge of the grunts. That man was Barkle. Yep. Wonder how he got in that position. He confirmed the evidence Shanna had uncovered, reported it to his superiors, and organized a unit to wipe out the cultists, who were acting as a vanguard for a larger group. He even gathered info on a few more heretic branches. It was a victory. Well, at least he himself did something. It's not just completely him stealing it from her. It wasn't a major achievement, at least not quite, but it was more than enough for a low-ranking Holy Knight to be promoted to mid-rank, and Shanna, the one who started it all, was quickly transferred to the homeland. There she officially pledged her sword to the Pope of St. Millis. So she got credit, so he didn't steal the credit for it. Okay. Props to this dude. Props to Barkle. Received the white exorcist armor, and was handed a replica of the sacred sword once yielded by St. Millis himself. She had become a Holy Knight. Overjoyed though she was, Shanna accepted it as only natural. She had delivered results and been recognized. With her ability, this was to be expected. She failed to see how Barkle had pulled strings behind the scenes to leverage her work for his own promotion. Oh, so she got bumped up, but he got bumped up more. But if he is the lead over her, he's still going to... And again, he technically did his own work, supposedly. I don't see how this is going to be like him gaining something on her behalf. I don't know, unless it says more. And so, Shanna became a junior Holy Knight, serving under Barkle, who had become a mid-rank Holy Knight. The stage shifted from investigation to eradication of the cult of heretics. The operation went smoothly, and Barkle and Shanna stood out amongst all the Knight squads. Some even said the operation wouldn't have succeeded without them. They discovered countless cultists, lured them out, tricked them, cornered them, and eliminated them. Like roaches, C1, and there was 30 more. That's how it felt. And after a year, they finally pinpointed the cult's leader's location. Barkle reported immediately. The Order mobilized about half the branch's forces for his full-scale eradication operation. That was the trap. To jump to the end, the Holy Knight's Order was annihilated. Yeah, he's gonna pin this on her then. If he's still in the position that he is, he must have pinned this on her. And I don't know, it seems like he really hates her, and so there's like an element of is he believing his own delusion, or does he blame her for what happened, that she fooled him in some way? Or does he need to cover something up by killing her? That's the question mark. Surrounded so thoroughly that not even an ant could escape, they were bombarded with flaming arrows. Fire didn't affect the exorcist armor, but most knights suffocated and were finished off. Their burning hatred to avenge their fallen comrades meant nothing. The more they resisted, the more brutally they were killed. No reinforcements ever came. It was hell. How did they survive? And in the midst of it, Barkle was nowhere to be found. Sus? He was gone. Despite being a mid-ranked knight leading a squad, he vanished the moment the fighting began. Later, she found out where he was, at the operation headquarters. After submitting a request for reinforcement to his field commander, he quietly returned to HQ and claimed, "My superior has betrayed us. The reinforcements request is a trap." The commander, hearing this, immediately cut off support and instead sent troops to the real location of the cult leader, which Barkle had discovered, and they killed the leader. In short, Barkle had crafted an elaborate plan for his own advancement. What? So basically, he knew where the actual headquarters was, or at least potentially they knew where both were, and somehow while his superior is going off to the main forces, he goes back to the main headquarters and claims it was all this big elaborate plan by the superior, cuts him off, takes the group to the real leader, and claims victory. Like, he kills off his superior while at the same time making an achievement for himself, which again, the location of the leader was probably something they even found out with the superior. Damn. So what is China's involvement with this? That's the question mark. First, he leaked the original plan to the cultists. Then, the heretics used this information to set up a trap based on it. Since the numbers of heretics was small, the reinforcements weren't sent to the main force, but instead to the real location Barkle provided. This ensured that all of his colleagues, those of equal rank, died. Even his superiors died at the front lines. Barkle killed the enemy's leader and emerged as a sole survivor of the main forces. He was hailed as a hero and rapidly promoted. Everything went according to plan. Except for one thing. China didn't die. China didn't die. Using her innate danger senses, she escaped the hellish massacre. She was the true sole survivor. Barkle panicked. China had survived. She shouldn't have been able to, which could only mean one thing. She knew. She had to have known about Barkle's plot and dodged the trap in advance. So Barkle drew his sword and tried to kill her on sight when she returned, covered in wounds. But China didn't understand why he attacked her. She didn't know. Not about the conspiracy, not about his betrayal. She had no idea that Barkle had used the cult's trap to wipe out the Holy Knight's order and climb the ranks. At the time, there was no way she could have known. China fled and kept running. Eventually, she ran out of money and took shelter as a wandering knight in various countries. Yeah, he's basically using her own mentality against her. She believes that she's this death knight or whatever. She believes that she's this death god knight, and that everybody dies around her, so he's using it to kind of break her down. But at the same time, he believes that she literally knows his secret and doesn't like her. Rumor of her once being a capable knight of the Holy Knight's Order spread, and true to the rumors, she proved herself and was occasionally employed as an official knight, but the assassins Barkle sent never let her settle anywhere for long. He's hiring assassins too. Cheeky? Is Cheeky supposed to be one? Question mark, is Cheeky supposed to be one? No enemy could outmatch China's danger senses, but no ally could keep up with her either. By the time she wiped out her foes, her allies were dead too. It happened more than once. That went on for 7 or 8 years, long enough for her illusions and dreams of being a holy knight to die and turn into bitterness. She gradually started wearing black, the complete opposite of the white holy knights. The maid-like outfit was simply practical, cheap, and easy to find anywhere. Okay, it's like, don't think about that one too much. She's just wearing it. Oh, gosh. So that kind of implies the idea that she wanted to go back at some point. Like, she gave up the illusions and dreams of being one. It died. So I'm guessing she just, like, fled this entire time. He kept sending people to kill her, and then eventually she's like, whatever. It's just not going to happen. By then, she'd earned the nickname Death God's Knight. The woman in black was death incarnate. Anyone who fought beside her, friend or foe, would end up dead. And when that rumor spread, the assassins stopped coming. But no country would hire her as a knight anymore. There's the rumors and whatnot that I was talking about earlier. The humiliation that she has. That's the story. All because of stupid ideas and ambitions like fame, glory, or status. My life got turned into a mess. And if we fight the king of the king dragons and you die, while I survive, the legend of the death god's night will just grow. When she looked up, Al was staring at her. Shaina flinched. She realized then just how piercing his gaze was, so direct that it felt like it could see through her. What? Don't worry, Al said, face completely serious. I'm not going to die. He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He likes doing that. Now, this is the odd thing here. This entire chapter, it's third person, but it feels like it's third person around Shaina. A lot of the looks into what individuals are thinking is surrounding her. It's always what she thinks, what she thought of the situation, what she thinks, what she's seen. And so with it going into the story about Barkle, I'm assuming she knows now that he did that. Like, yes, at first she had no idea when she arrived there, but then now, after being chased by him for so long and Assassin's Scent, at some point she figured it out. That's my assumption, is that she knows now. And now when she's going to this whole situation, she's now explaining the situation to him. Now she's telling Al, please stay away from me. Though it could be that this is the story of Barkle. Now let's come back to here, and Shaina, all she did was explain why she thinks everybody dies around her, and why she thinks Barkle hates her is because people die around her, so that's obviously why I'm a bad person. It's not that big of a deal, whatever the way it goes, but it still does technically explain a lot of what we see in the first chapter around Shaina. This is somebody that doesn't like somebody that acts like a hero, is somebody that is seen a lot of death, somebody that's seen a lot of her dreams and ambitions of becoming some great holy knight, like everybody else. Like I said, everybody wants to become this. And she had the shot, and she did incredible. She did good. She uncovered this entire cult, but because somebody knew that he can get up there by literally putting everybody else under his feet, corpses of everybody else on his feet, he's able to get in that position. He chooses to do this. Now, it is more odd in the idea this guy was seen as such a hero. I would think that, again, because he was part of the group that was supposed to go in there, that he should see some responsibility for the annihilation. But again, he claimed that it was superiors. He claimed that he was the one that uncovered the truth behind this big sabotage happening, and thus getting that boost up. Kind of tells me that the Holy Knights Order has some serious leadership problems. If this is something that can actually happen, and somebody can get away with something this big and drastic, I would think there would be like a massive investigation to find out if this actually did happen, because a complete annihilation of all these individuals. And then they imply that it was like an entire force. That's crazy, dude. Entire annihilation. Anyways, I'm going to call it there. I think that's a good stopping point. It's a good little stop point for this story. I think we got plenty of like look inside of Shaina's character, which is fantastic. I'm still, again, trying to find the connection to the Death God part. It seems a little weird to be calling this element the Death God, but I kind of want to go back and, you know, relook at like Randolph and that whole story and like him and his master, because it's just literally like a title. Like, it's literally a title that he brought upon himself. It wasn't necessarily like, it's not like the Sword God style. It's not like an actual like fighting technique. But again, how we get from Shaina, the Death God's Knight, to Randolph, the Death God, that's the question mark. Oh, again, hopefully eventually we'll get into that, unless it's like literally in 2 paragraphs. But anyways, I'm going to cut it there. Hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, thank you guys so much for dropping by. Hey, chat. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and you'll join me next week for more of Subjugation of the King Dragon. Eventually, we're going to find this King of the King Dragons, but I hope you guys enjoyed. And again, as always, I greatly appreciate it. Support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. Thank you. But until the next Mushoku Monday, y'all take care. Shaina pondered. So I assume it's Shaina, because we're still perspective Shaina. Every time people talk, I have to decipher who's talking. It's going to be a Mushoku Monday where Andrew crashes out like 5 times in the outtakes. But as she said it, who? Shaina. I have to wait till the very last quote, and then Refugin says sometimes who is talking, and then I have to work backward from there and assume it's only 2 people and not 3 people. It's bad writing. It's honestly bad writing, because any like sort of character development that comes from dialogue is lost, because you don't know who really is saying what. You're making guesses. You're getting the conversation, but not the people, is really the big problem with it. I'm going to assume it's Shaina. Al responds to Shaina, and then Shaina talks again. I don't know if it might be Shiki as well. Who's asking the question? Because that implies that they have little knowledge of a battlefield. So that tells me that Shiki or Al would possibly not have... I'm totally crashing out right now. I hate that they don't say who talks. Vice Captain, that sounds like an important position. It's just middle management. Not that impressive. So is he talking or is it China talking? In terms of personnel and jurisdiction, it might even surpass the main brand. So he's downplaying his position. See, this changes the complete context to who's talking. It's Barkle downplaying it, not China correcting it. Is it middle management? I don't know. I don't know who's talking. I literally don't know who's talking. Again, here's the third time I'm crashing out about this in my outtakes. How much extra time my recording has been just trying to figure out who's talking. In other words, Barkle was the number 2 of the second largest branch. So it's him downplaying. Okay, thank you. I had to read like 5 paragraphs to find out this is him downplaying it.